Hello there, and welcome to part 2 of the Grand Hierophant Khateps story. In this series, we follow Khatep on his journey to gather all the books of Nagash through an immersive and intense storytelling playthrough of Total War Warhammer. But what happened last time?
Our story starts with Grand Hierophant Khatep, the oldest and wisest of all Leech priests. He must traverse the land searching for scrolls and magical inscriptions. A band of orcs stand in his way, blocking the road to the north. This proves to be a minor bump in the road, but is still ultimately successful. Khateps seeks out more settlements to conquer. He turns them away, knowing war is declared, and no doubt they will drag their measly Norscan pets along too.
After receiving the message, Khatep decides he needs to reinforce his empire, ensuring the safety and structure of his settlements. To do this, he must finish off the Skaven rats from his vicinity. He doesn't need these to poke their nasty heads up at a more delicate time. He reaches the Temple of Cain and notices a band of Skaven lurking outside. This settlement must be under Skaven control, but with a full army and the might of Leech magic, it is a decisive victory. Temple of Cain is now liberated and under Tomb King control. But even better, the Skaven clan Septic has now been obliterated. Khatep has some more breathing space now, but he must be wary, as a band of pirates, led by Abhishek Bloodgatherer, lingers nearby. With this breathing space, Khatep decides it is a good time to replenish his army and make some upgrades to his settlements. While Khatep occupies Temple of Cain, he notices an army of dark elves sauntering towards a ruined Kragoth Deep. The elves are making moves now. Very interesting. Khatep isn't one for fighting a war on just one front. He has had a scout working his way through enemy territory and gathering information. Prince Sekera has discovered a settlement belonging to the Wood Elves on the outskirts of Khatep's capital region. Wood Elves cannot be trusted, and they would try and destroy anyone who may pose a threat to their beloved trees. Sekera attempts to assault their garrison to keep them busy, but alas, he is discovered and wounded. But his story does not end there. He will drag his bones back to the desert where he will put himself back together, and he will be ready for revenge. Back in the north, Khatep has almost fully replenished his troops, and confirms that the Dark Elves have taken over Kragoth Deep. The time for attacking them is not now. Knowing elves, their army would consist of fast-ranged units. These would eat apart his slow-moving army of bones, and although his magic would make short work of them, he cannot risk losing too many units, especially with Valkia's threat still hanging in the air. No, he must swallow his pride for now and allow their expansion. Khatep also believes it is a good idea to retreat from his position in Temple of Cain back closer to the desert in the south. Receiving word that his scout was wounded by Wood Elves, Khatep feels that enemies could be present in almost every direction. The breathing space feels like it has started to dwindle away. With Khatep now feeling the potential pressures from different nations on his borders, he feels he must turn to a new tactic, one further away from the sword and shield: diplomacy. Although there is no love between some nations, one can, however, ensure that attack doesn't come using non-aggression pacts. One is agreed with a faction of Dark Elves, and another is agreed with a faction of Vampire Coast, both of which Khatep ensures he is well paid for. But also he knows that these won't last forever. In the end, there can only be one ruling race. The time has now come. The wisdom of the First Dynasty is here. A king shall rise, and henceforth bring with him another army. A well-needed army too, Khatep is aware, as he knows his desert is unprotected from anyone who would want to attack while he is in the northern mountains. King Hakaros has been resurrected, and troops are already beginning to rise from the sand. Archers, charioteers, and warriors alike will join the king in the Plain of Spiders, and Khatep's hold on the region is growing fast, as does his power and influence. Soon, his reach will be able to grow out wider. This knowledge of protection in his home region has given the Khatep the boldness to instead move towards the Dark Elves who dare to encroach on his land. Perhaps he can take them. Kragoth Deep would be a good settlement to take. Another king is available for resurrection, but Khatep does not yet have the magic to raise another army. So King Wakaf will have to wait until the wisdom of the second dynasty is researched. Instead, Khatep orders his priests to research further into what their first dynasty can give him. Perhaps the proclamation of the first dynasty will yield quicker results to his control. While his priests work on this research, Khatep moves in on Kragoth Deep. Obviously, his confidence has grown from his newly formed army, but is it premature? We shall see. For now, Khatep declares war on Naggarond, one of the more powerful factions of the Dark Elves, who are equipped with precise ranged units and strong magic. He encircles their army, led by Jildu, a strong magic user in her own rights. Although her forces are encircled, she decides to attack Khatep and starts her formation. Khatep thought he would be able to slowly dwindle her troops before battle commences, but no, he makes the decision to retreat, away from this settlement, but also out of danger. He is frustrated. How could he be forced to run like a dog with his tail between his legs? He is the great Hierophant Khatep. No one can match his magical might. Not only has he had to retreat, but he has also put a target on his back. Having settlements so close to Naggarond and declaring war on them was a mistake he cannot afford to make if he wants to rebuild his beloved city. He may have created more trouble for himself in the north, but in the desert a familiar face returns. Prince Sekere has fully recovered and joins the ranks of King Hakaros, and vows to destroy the Wood Elves for his setback. As they look to declare war in the desert, Khatep decides to end the war in the north. A mistake must come with repercussions, so Khatep gives up the Temple of Cain for an end to the war with Naggarond. A painful mistake Khatep is sure not to make again. He will reclaim this territory and destroy the Dark Elves for good, but perhaps when his ability matches his confidence. Instead, Khatep decides to join King Hakaros in their pledge against the Wood Elves, and journeys south while Hakaros ventures to the west, setting his sights on the Temple of Adolf. And war is officially declared against the Sisters of Twilight, the Wood Elves who wounded the prince. Hakaros decides to mount his attack on Temple of Adolf, and seeing how pitiful the garrison is, he is easily victorious, adding another foothold for the Tomb Kings in this world. Khatep regains some confidence from this victory, and will continue south to join the fight against the Wood Elves. Also, more priests and necrotecs are resurrected to scout the lands, and cause suffering to enemies of the Tomb Kings. But will the fight against the Wood Elves prove to be as painful as the war against the Dark Elves? And will Valkia ever show herself? We will have to wait and see.